I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does, without me lifting a finger. So I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
Lowe's knows what makes SpringFest savings even better are member-only doorbuster deals. Right now, Rewards members can save $40 on an Allen & Roth Chesler Gold faucet. Was $99, now $59. Plus, save $110 on a Cobalt 40-volt battery trimmer and blower combo kit. Was $279, now $169. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 3/24 while supplies last. Program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
Support for this podcast comes from CDTA, The Eagle, a Times Union podcast driven by CDTA. Maybe it's all this spring weather, or maybe it's all the high school championships happening and new pro sports seasons starting, but this week, we are in a sporting mood here on The Eagle, a Times Union podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Marshall. We're going to dive right in here with arena football. The Albany Firebirds season is off to a rough start. And it's not because they're not playing well. It's because the teams they're playing have been dropping out of the league like flies. Joining me now to make sense of this season's shaky kickoff is Times Union sports reporter Adam Schinder. Adam Schinder, you are one of our newest and most fabulous additions to the Times Union. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I grew up in the Philadelphia suburbs, graduated Syracuse University, and I've been in the capital region for a little more than 15 years now, kind of gradually working my way east. Started in Amsterdam at the Recorder in the fall of 2008. Ended up at the Daily Gazette in 2020 and came to the Times Union. What's weird is now it's a couple of months ago and the time has absolutely flown by.
Well, we are so happy to have you here. You are covering sports for us. Specifically, what I wanted to talk about with you today is the Firebirds and whether or not they're having a season. So tell us, what's the latest?
So the season is getting underway. The Arena Football 1 season, after a lot of kind of turmoil and a lot of teams dropping out in the lead up to the season, has finally gotten underway. 2 weekends ago, they played one game. There was supposed to be 2, but one of the teams that was supposed to play that weekend dropped out. Actually tried to sell their team. In doing that, the league just said, well, you're gone. We're terminating your membership. But they got a game in their week 0. They played 3 games last weekend. And just so happened, since the Firebirds, who were supposed to play Orlando, the team that was kind of unceremoniously kicked out, they were supposed to play them last weekend. So the Firebirds are the last team in the league to get to play. But Friday night, MVP Arena, they finally start.
This is all kind of coming on the heels of some, what's the word I want, turmoil, I guess,
yeah.
in the previous sort of iteration of an Albany Arena League football team. Can you give us a little bit, just a little summary of the history? Because we have talked about it on this podcast.
Yeah,
before.
so the last 2 years have both kind of been full of turmoil in different ways. So 2023, you had the entire, when it was still the Albany Empire in the National Arena League, the entire Antonio Brown ownership fiasco, players, quitting over not getting paid, issues at team hotels, issues with, did Antonio Brown actually own the team? Was he actually an American citizen? The Antonio El Allah Express Trust Enterprises, a very odd situation that, mid-season, when they're not paying their membership dues to the NAL, they just get booted out. Right. And that franchise is just dies.
It just dissolves.
Dissolves. The former pre-Antonio Brown owners of the Empire, led by Mike Quarta, then last year bring back the old Firebirds name in a relaunched version of the Arena Football League. I believe the third different version of the Arena League, and everything was pretty successful on the Albany end of that. Team got to the Arena Bowl, ended up losing to the Billings Outlaws.
So were they in a different league than the Empire were?
Yes.
Okay.
So the Empire pre-pandemic were in, I believe, that version of the Arena Football League, the 2010s era relaunch. That folds. Arena football has a lot of leagues that fold.
Mercurial is a good word to describe that.
Very much. The second version of the Empire are part of the National Arena League, and then after the Antonio Brown saga, end up in what was an ultimately doomed Arena Football League relaunch that was just badly managed from a league level. Teams not being able to make payroll. The league had promised a lot of money to players, a lot of which was being paid out of the league from everything I've learned. The league's failures left teams to make up a lot of that money. A lot of them couldn't afford it. By the end of the year, that league started with 16 teams. A bunch of them were run by the league. By the end of the year, they had 8. You had, teams from other leagues playing as teams, as teams were in the middle of folding. The commissioner who had restarted the league kind of disappeared as things were going on. So a complete disaster that was, by the 8 teams who survived it, they got to the finish line. And then those 8 teams, I think partially because of trademark issues over the name of the Arena Football League, break off. They form Arena Football 1. I think was originally going to start with 12 teams, eventually ended up with 14. And kind of over the last 4 months, 6 of those have kind of peeled off. Few of them were teams that just said, we just don't think we're going to be ready, and gave them a couple of months notice. We're going to play in 2026. Yeah. And then 3 teams in the last 3 weeks before the season, also with Orlando, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, and Arizona, all were gone from the league.
Is this normal for arena football?
From everything I've learned, still being pretty new to the game, chaos is not a surprising thing. These are, for the most part, tend to be, medium to small market teams that are, they're not backed with the kind of money that Major League Pro Sports are. And they don't have the advantage of a lot of certain other, what we consider minor league pro sport, minor league baseball, minor league hockey, where you have an affiliate relationship.
Right, like the Devils or the,
like the previous or the previous iteration, well, not previous iteration, but the previous arrangement for the Valley Cats, right. When they were a minor league affiliate. Now they're playing independent ball, which that still has a little more structure to it and a little more official relationship. There's a lot. There are, at least 3 leagues that would try to consider themselves the primary indoor football league with AF1. You have still the National Arena League and the Indoor Football League. Teams move from league to league. Mm-hmm. Teams change. Teams, it's a very fluctuating situation from year to year, and also a lot of drama, a lot of which tends to play out on social media too.
All right, so mercurial sport. But we're finally in a place, or at least the Albany Firebirds are finally in a place where they can start to have a season. What is that season looking like from a talent perspective?
Talent-wise, this team is really, really good. They brought back a lot of guys from that team that went to the Arena Bowl last year, was 5 points short of winning it. They bring in quarterback Sam Castronova, who won a couple of championships, won a championship in 2022 with the Empire, left during the Antonio Brown saga, was in San Antonio in the Indoor Football League last year, accounted for almost 100 touchdowns.
Wow.
They play a longer season, but I believe 75 passing touchdowns, 23 rushing touchdowns.
Wow. And it's a shorter field,
It's
too.
a 50-yard field, cramped space, things move fast, 8 guys out there. It's a high-scoring game, but that is a really, really good season. And then they actually added a few guys who were guys that their coach Damon Ware said when they were playing them last year were guys who gave him trouble. They had Dwayne Brown, who was the receiver from the Billings Outlaws, who scored 5 touchdowns in the Arena Bowl. He's a Firebird this year. And so on defense, they added Ezekiel Rose, who played for Nashville last year, who Damon Ware said he was the defensive lineman who gave us the most trouble. They got a couple of guys with former NFL ties.
Wow.
In them. Duke Williams is a guy who was with the Buffalo Bills for a little while. Had one really, really great game. One year came and caught like 6 passes for 100 yards and a touchdown, but had mostly been playing in Canada for the last few years. But a really, really talented team that on paper is probably the favorite to win this league. Anything less than a championship for this team is almost certainly a disappointment.
So let's hope that they actually get to finish their season so they can prove that. What about like from a sort of fan perspective, right? The Firebirds, they go way, way back. You know, they have this new nostalgic name. Like, are they going to, like, what is the draw? Like, are people coming to downtown Albany to see them play?
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that does have a passionate fan base, that they're going to average, a few thousand, they're going to get good crowds at MVP Arena. They are a team that has a passionate fan base. It's a time of year in terms of professional sports. No one else in the region has really gotten started yet. The Valley Cats don't quite overlap with them. So it tends to be a big event, Friday, Saturday night at MVP Arena, and they'll draw, and it'll be interesting to see, if they continue to be as successful as they were last year. If they continue to draw, and with Orlando out of the league, they'll almost certainly top the league in attendance this year. They have the biggest arena in the league.
Yeah, and they have a much bigger metro area too. So there's like apples to oranges kind of situation there. So they're basically saying, hey, we're here to stay. Don't worry about all the turmoil that you're seeing in the rest of the league. We are solid. Yeah,
one of the things on their weekly YouTube show that Damon Ware said is that the Firebirds are league proof. They're a franchise that's in a position that no matter what's going on around them, they are fine. And the Firebirds ownership, Mike Quarta, is heavily involved in this league. So they're trying to kind of translate the model that they have further on. They also said, yes, we've lost these 6 teams, but if we're going to lose them, let's lose them before the season. Not have teams, drop off 2-3 weeks into the season, late in the season. But yeah, there's an idea that there's stability with this league. They just have to kind of, if they get going, they're a little more confident in the ownership, in the ownership that they have, and the leadership at the league level than they were at this time a year ago.
Well, that inspires confidence. Last question that I want to ask you is, what else are you covering? What are you looking forward to covering here at the Times Union?
So I've been straight into UAlbany men's basketball, which was an interesting end to the season, tough end to the season for that team. And then also looking forward to getting down to Saratoga Racecourse this summer. Belmont Stakes happens to fall on my 40th birthday this year, which is going to be a fun day this year. So it's going to be really interesting. And then I'll be helping out with our high school coverage. Got high school state championships this weekend, which is always an exciting time. But yeah, really just excited to see how everything progresses, and excited to see what the summer at Saratoga looks like this year.
Thank you so much for joining me in your inaugural appearance on the podcast.
Thank you.
For more news and results from our stellar sports desk, head over to timesunion.com or check out TU Sports on Instagram. Let's take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk to the driver of the monster truck Sparkle Smash, who's heading to Albany next month for Monster Jam.
Why is healthcare so expensive? What's happening with climate change? And are elections safe? You can find answers to those questions and a lot more with Capitol Confidential from me, Dan Clark. I give you the latest news and analysis from the state capitol and beyond. Sign up now at CapitolConfidential.com. That's Capital with an O, Confidential.com.
12-year-old Jaliek Rainwalker vanished without a trace from a small upstate New York village on a cool November night in 2007. His adoptive parents say he ran away. Police believe he was murdered, but a body has never been found, and a suspect has never been named.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Yeah,
Appreciate
okay,
that.
all right, but you don't want to talk.
Then when I learned they were trying to undo the adoption, that's when I learned that this story was very complicated, well, a lot more complicated than I even thought.
Almost 2 decades later, the case remains unsolved. I'm Jessica Marshall.
And I'm Wendy Libertar.
In this podcast from the Times-Union, we take a deep dive into the mystery of this missing child and try to find some answers.
So have you come to terms that Jaliek is probably dead?
Yes. I feel that he was killed on November 1st, 2007.
Available now, wherever you listen to podcasts.
If you're enjoying this podcast, take advantage of all the Times-Union has to offer and support our efforts to bring you award-winning journalism by becoming a Times-Union subscriber today. Go to timesunion.com/subscribe.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Eagle, a Times-Union podcast. I'm Jessica Marshall. Monster Jam is coming back to the MVP Arena in Albany next month. Famous monster trucks like Grave Digger and Sparkle Smash are going to be there tearing it up. Our next guest is Jamie Sullivan, one of only 10 female drivers in all of Monster Jam, and the only one competing in Albany this time around. She's behind the wheel of Sparkle Smash and joins Christy Gustafson-Barletti now on The Eagle.
Hi, I'm Christy here with Jamie Sullivan. She drives Sparkle Smash for Monster Jam, and we're going to learn a little bit more about her and what life is like with this show. Hi, Jamie. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you guys for having me. I'm super pumped for this.
I am too. First, I need to start with, how did you get into this, right? This is a male-dominated world. I believe you're the only woman on the tour, at least the woman driving one of the trucks. And it's just a fun, high-paced, high-energy, and risky job. So tell us how you got into it.
Yeah, so my dad actually, my parents are from New York, which is super cool getting to do this, going to Albany, not far from where they were, but my dad actually grew up racing around there. So, he did racing up in New York, Connecticut, Pennsylvania. So when I was young, I was 9 years old, he actually got me into racing. I started in go-karts, and then I moved my way up in short track, oval track racing. So I did that. I did asphalt pro trucks. I did some dirt racing, some super late models. And then in 2019, my dad took me for a tour of the University of Northwestern Ohio, which is an automotive and high performance motorsports school. So, I got the chance to actually tour that. And he said, if I didn't go there, that he'd be going there. So of course, it was something I had to do. I got to actually get my degree in automotive and high performance. And then I ended up adding on marketing. So I got my degree in marketing as well. And they're actually partnered with Monster Jam. So I got connected with the right people about 3 years ago. I ended up starting out on an independent monster truck team, working on the trucks. So I worked on the trucks for a couple years. And then, like I said, 3 years ago, got partnered with Monster Jam. And here we are driving. I started in Monster Mutt Dalmatian, driving that truck, and now in Sparkle Smash, which is such a fun fan favorite truck.
The trucks are named. You don't pick the name of the truck that you go with. It's just the driver gets assigned the truck, not the other way around.
Yeah, so Monster Jam actually partners the drivers with a truck that fits their personality. And, with this being such a girly truck, it's really such a fun truck to have to get like women involved in the sport. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get more women and girls involved in the sport so that hopefully they can drive one day too and not make it such a male dominated industry.
No, you had said that your dad was from New York and was driving race cars in New York. Any chance you remember what racetrack? Was it in Watkins Glen or was it closer to Albany at Lebanon Valley, or are you not sure?
So he's actually he grew up in Middletown, New York. So he raced at the Middletown Speedway, Orange County Fair Speedway. I think he raced at Syracuse, all over the place. I mean, there's so many different tracks. He raced dirt track racing, so he did like dirt super late models and big block modifieds up there.
That's so fun. And then you said too that you started with go-karts. Was this like the go-karts when you go to, say, one of those go-kart parks or something like that?
No, so it was actually like just like a oval track, like you would do with like short track racing with cars, but it was a little bit smaller for go-karts. So I had a full roll cage and all, and we'd run them. Me and my sister actually grew up racing them, and it was just a family sport growing up.
So is your sister still in the racing world, or did she go a different route?
So she actually did go a different route. She's now doing teaching. So she's going to be a teacher actually in the next couple months. So it's crazy. I'm actually the youngest sibling of 8. So, I've had to come out and do all these crazy things that they do and then do something even crazier, which is drive a monster truck.
So when you're out there, it looks dangerous. And I know I had read in your bio, you said, look, I just strap in and go. And then, you need that seatbelt for sure. When is a time that you were a little nervous or a little scared? I'm sure it's an adrenaline rush and that's exciting, but also, again, you look at it and it's not without risk. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so actually, I mean, I get nerves every time before I get in the truck. You're sitting there waiting for it to happen. But every time I hit the track, everything just goes away. You're focused on what you're doing. You're focused on putting on a great event for all the fans. And, it just seems like everything that's on your mind is just gone. And so it's really awesome to be able to do that. And you hear all the fans in the stands cheering you on, and that just gets you pumped up to come out there and do what you do.
Have you ever gotten hurt?
Not really. I mean, you could get hurt in them, but it's not really common because we have such good safety equipment. We have a 7-point harness, which is 7 seat belts that strap you into the Monster Jam truck. We have full containment seats that are literally built to us. So they wrap around our ribs, they wrap around everything so that this way you can't really physically move. We have a Hans device that holds our neck from going back and forth, that hooks onto our helmet. So a lot of different safety factors that go in play. And, it really keeps us all safe out on the track.
Oh, that's interesting. All right. So Sparkle Smash, the seat inside Sparkle Smash is built specifically for you. So the person who drives Gravedigger or some other truck is not going to fit into your truck. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and what's crazy is I actually just sat in the Gravedigger truck last weekend, and oh my gosh, I feel like it's like a lazy boy because he's a little bit bigger than I am, and it was so much more comfortable. But you know what? It's safety first. So yeah, my seat actually, I mean, it is snug to me. There's not even my crew chief that has to drive it and move it around sometimes can't really fit into it. So yeah, no, it's definitely good for safety reasons.
And when you're not out there on the track and not performing at a show, what are you driving?
So I actually have a pickup truck. I have a 2500 Chevy pickup truck long bed, so it's pretty close equivalent to a Monster Jam truck.
Do you ever, for fun, take it off-roading and do that kind of thing, or do you save the dirt driving for the arenas?
I save it for the arenas. The weekends are my time to have fun and do all that stuff, and gotta save my truck so it don't get broken.
Yeah, most of these shows are on the weekends. What do you do during the week? Because I think I was told you have another job, correct?
Yeah, I actually work at a dog grooming salon. So it kind of fit when I was driving the Monster Mutt Dalmatian, because I work at a dog grooming salon as an admin. So I work here and, just kind of take care of people when they come in, check the dogs in, check the dogs out. So it's definitely a good time for sure.
And I read that you have a dog. Does he or she go on the road with you, or how does that work? What is life on the road like when you're also a pet owner?
So when I go on the weekends to Monster Jam, she actually stays home with my boyfriend because he works in North Carolina where we live at a racing industry, a shock company. So he builds for different race cars, different shocks. And so she stays home with him. But when we are not going to Monster Jam, we're just traveling on the weekend, of course, she's alongside me, constantly with me. I swear she's attached to my side.
And then you were saying that he works on trucks as well. That's part of what he does. And then you were saying that's what you went to school for, right? Right. In addition to marketing, you also learned automotive repair and that kind of thing. Is that what you were studying?
Yeah, so me and my boyfriend actually met in college at the same university. So we got the same degree on learning how to work on race cars and monster trucks. And yeah, I went the route of working on monster trucks. He's actually working on race cars. So it's a little bit different, but it's pretty cool to have that opportunity, to learn what you're going to be driving out on the track. So now, like, I actually had some issues last weekend when we were in Toledo. I had some breakage with the truck, and being able to relay exactly what's going on that moment to them helps you so you can get back out for competitions and not waste any time. So it definitely came in handy last weekend.
That's a good point because you understand kind of the front end and the back end, right? You can drive it, but you also understand how it works. And does everybody have those skills, or is that sort of a skill that's more unique to you as one of the drivers?
It's definitely unique because not all drivers have that ability to be able to pinpoint what's going on with the truck. We do have some independent drivers that have the ability because they do work on their own trucks as well. But yeah, it's definitely not as common as you would think. So it comes in handy for sure. Like I said, last weekend, we actually had a drive shaft go out coming up the ramp for racing. And like I knew exactly what it was because I felt it clunking right there in the front. I'm like, yep, drive shaft's broken. So they could easily take it right back to the back, get it fixed. And it was fixed within probably 10 minutes to go back out for the next competition.
So you talk about the competitions. Do you know who's going to win going into it, or is it a genuine competition where it's like anyone can win?
So this is actually a literal competition. We come out here, we're running for points. So our series goes on from January until May, and we're running out there for points. There's 24 points on the line, 8 per competition. And we want all those points because whoever gets the most points at the end of the season, they get to actually go out to Monster Jam World Finals in Salt Lake City, Utah in July. So, we're definitely running for points. We don't know who's going to win. Sometimes it could be me, but it could be Gravedigger. It could be Terminal Velocity. There's some great drivers on this tour. So it's definitely going to be an awesome competition.
How are you pacing so far this season? We're about 2/3 of the way through if it ends in May. How's it looking for you?
So right now we're third in points, and there's 8 drivers on the tour. And then we are 9 points behind second. So we're working our way up. We're trying to get to that second spot at least. I think we're only about 20 points out of first. So, we're trying hard, but it's definitely tough lineup. We have like all of the greatest up and coming drivers, and you could see it out on the track.
Awesome. And do you have a favorite element or thing to do on the track or something that's your specialty?
I do like to do some moonwalks out there. I'll kick the truck up on 2 wheels on the front and then try and go into a combo move onto the back 2 tires. So that's something I'm trying to work on and do even better at. And then obviously some backflips too. I love a good backflip. So that's a good time too.
Can you practice? Right. Like when do you practice? Do you have practices or rehearsals or whatever that might be in the Monster Jam world?
Yeah, so usually during the summer, they'll actually send us out for a week or two to Paxton, Illinois, which we have literally an exact same setup out there as we do on the Monster Jam track wherever we go for a competition. So we'll have an arena setup and then we'll have a stadium setup. So we have the same exact tracks that we go out and compete on the weekends that we do out there. So we'll go out there and we'll go with a couple other drivers and they'll train us on whatever we entirely want to work on. So each driver can pick whatever they want to work on and they'll try and match us with those other drivers and send us all out there at the same time and do different stunts or whatever we want to work on. So I think this year I'm going to try and go out there and work on some bicycles. So getting the truck up on 2 tires on the side and doing some crazy saves with that and, just a couple couple other things that I feel like I need to work on, but it's definitely awesome time to be able to, because we learned from Tom Mentz, the driver of Max D, who's now retired. We learned from Tristan England, who drives the JCB Digatron. And then we also learned from Camden Murphy, who drives our new Classroom Crusher. So it's a great time to be able to learn from other drivers that have had the same up and coming experience and, know what you're going through and be able to teach you.
And it sounds like based on those names, though, those are all men, right? So
Yes.
you're kind of paving the path for the women, and you'll have to be the woman teacher because there are no women before you, or at least who aren't in the competition right now, correct?
Right now there is one on my tour, but as far as Albany, I'm going to be the only female there. But we have actually 10 women in the sport. There's 55 drivers in total, and 10 are women. But we're trying to get more women involved, like I said. So right now we do have a few that have been in Monster Jam before I am, and they're killing it out on the track. They're doing their best to go ahead and compete with all these great drivers that are on these tours. And we're trying hard to get more women in it, like I said, and each and every week we're looking at it.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie. We appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Jamie Sullivan, Sparkle Smash, and the rest of the Monster Jam crew are headed to the MVP Arena in Albany April 5th and 6th. That is it for this week. We're going to take a short break for the next few weeks, but we will be back in April with more from inside the newsroom. The Eagle is a production of the Times-Union. It's produced and edited by myself, Jessica Marshall, with help from Erica Smith and the Times-Union digital team. Our music is Flyin' by Top Floor. Got questions or comments about the Eagle or any of our Times-Union podcasts? Go ahead, email us at podcast@timesunion.com. Support for this podcast comes from CDTA, The Eagle, a Times-Union podcast driven by CDTA.